everybody. I'm Bill Rabinowitz along with Joey Kaufman. We're here at the Woody Hayes Athletic Center where Ohio State had their first kind of media availability before the Cotton Bowl game against Missouri. I was going to call it a showdown, but I'm not sure that qualifies. But
it's in Texas. You could call it a showdown. That's what they probably do down.
All right.
Sort of goes with the scene.
We had, I don't know, maybe 10 players talk. A lot of them are upperclassmen who were thought to have been considering opting out of the game, but all of them today said that they were playing. Now, we did not talk to Marvin Harrison, Travion Henderson, and JT Tuimoloau, so we don't know about them. But a bunch of players: Jack Sawyer, Denzel Burke, Donovan Jackson. Go through the list. Emeka Egbuka. I mean, everyone who spoke today said they are going to play in the game. They left their future. They didn't announce what they're going to do in the future, other than Cody Simon, who said he is going to return, which is a big, big get for Ohio State because they're going to lose Tommy Eichenberg and presumably Steel Chambers.
Yeah, presumably both of them do have the option actually to come back.
Yeah, but we expect them to move on, and so getting Cody Simon back is big news. But you know, at least Ohio State's not going to have a decimated roster for the Cotton Bowl.
Yeah, because that was the question with so many guys entering the transfer portal in the last week. They've had 14 scholarship players go into the portal, including Kyle McCord. So you work off 85 scholarship players, 14 down, you're down to 71. And then you have opt-outs, then unavailable players who may be banged up in both practices or guys who are out all this year anyway. And you're getting down to the 60s. And so to get a lot of these top-line starters to commit to playing in the game, I think is important for them. And obviously, probably the biggest question for this bowl game is who's going to start at quarterback. It looks like it might very well be Devin Brown. And if Devin Brown, I would assume so. And if it is Devin Brown, I think you want to ensure you have as good a supporting cast around him to get a real, true evaluation of how he does behind center. And if you have Emeka Egbuka playing, if you have Donovan Jackson playing, I mean, that helps, I think, for him certainly.
Yeah, I mean, I still think it's very, very questionable whether Marvin Harrison would play. I mean, Travion Henderson, we don't know. I think it's more likely than Marvin that he would play. Cade Stover, we don't know about. He was not among the players who spoke today. So, you know, it's not necessarily going to be a full team, but it's going to be a representative team. It's not going to be a skeletal kind of roster. And let's face it, for Devin Brown, this is a huge game because Ohio State very well, I mean, I think they are pursuing players in the transfer portal. That doesn't mean that guy, whoever it is, and there's no Justin Fields in the transfer portal. Nobody's like an obvious, if you get him, he's the starter and you run with him. But there are quality guys. But this is an audition for Devin Brown. If Devin Brown comes in and lights it up against Missouri, then he certainly is the huge front runner for next year.
Yeah, I think certainly it's an opportunity for Ohio State to take stock. It's a big audition for Devin Brown, where if he, as you say, if he comes out, those 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, Ohio State maybe starts to feel pretty good about that position. And if not, then they may they have other guys on the roster. Lincoln Keenholz, Aaron Nolan come in, but you may have to take stock look at the transfer portal, see what other options are out there. But I will say, the bowl game is December 29th. A lot of these quarterbacks who are in the portal right now on December, what is it, today's December 12th? It is December 12th. Okay. But they're going to be off the board by December 29th. Riley Leonard committed to Notre Dame today. Cam Ward's in the portal, the Washington State quarterback. Dylan Gabriel already committed to Oregon. They're going to go quick. And I think for Ohio State, I don't know how well it's going to align for you to evaluate Brown in the Cotton Bowl December 29th versus what's in the portal. But there's another portal. There's another portal in the spring after spring practice where there will be an option for them down the line. But it's a big opportunity for Devin Brown.
Yeah, I don't know how viable that really is to get a quarterback after spring practice.
It's hard.
It's hard. They don't know the system. They haven't worked with the players. You've got a compressed training camp schedule. That's not ideal. So, look, Ohio State could get, I don't know about Cam Ward. Let's just say for the sake of argument, it's Cam Ward. He could commit to Ohio State. He's not going to play in the bowl game. I mean, he's not going to get here time to be ready for that. So Devin Brown can say, I don't care who's coming. This is what I've done. I've been here for 2 years. I've proved myself in this bowl game. Let's go. And so this is a huge, huge game for Devin Brown, and if Lincoln Kienholz gets his chance, it's a huge opportunity for him as well.
And it's important to keep in mind they're playing a pretty good team. They're playing an SEC program in Missouri that's a top 10 team. So if you are looking to see what you have in the quarterback position, a good game against a team of this caliber is certainly of note. When they were trying to play games last year to evaluate Brown and McCord early in the season, it was Indiana, Youngstown State, Western Kentucky. I mean, this is a much better, I think, barometer for what you're going to see next year from your best teams in the Big Ten with Oregon, Penn State, and Michigan.
Because games matter. I mean, I think about, it's not a perfect comparison or analogy, but in 2018 when J.T. Barrett got hurt against Michigan, and J.T. Barrett got, was tapped to lead the team, and he let him come back win, and that was a springboard for him to beat out Joe Burrow, who at the time had a broken hand. So, games matter. And if Devin Brown plays well in this Cotton Bowl game, then that's a huge kind of mark on the resume for him. And I think it's important for the team to feel better about themselves. This is where it's kind of like 2 years ago when they played Utah in the Rose Bowl, and people were saying, is there any motivation for Ohio State? They didn't make the playoff. They're just going to mail it in. A bunch of players, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, didn't play. And it ended up being probably the best case scenario for Ohio State, because they had a nice comeback win against Utah. Jackson Smith and Jigba had a game for the ages.
Tommy Eichenberg had 17 tackles in that game.
Eichenberg kind of announced that, okay, we got a player here at middle linebacker. Marvin Harrison Jr. caught 3 touchdown passes in his first start. And I think about guys like Carnell Tate, who's presumably going to start instead of Julian Fleming, who's in the portal. And this is a great opportunity for him, because they've got some great receivers coming in, in this next recruiting class. And this is a chance for these receivers, Brandon Ennis, guys like that, to make a statement too.
Yeah, they had a lot of guys come out in that Rose Bowl 2 years ago, but you're right. They also got off to a slow start in that game. They were trailing, and so coming off the Michigan game, there was questions about the whole toughness trope started. Right. Josh Gaddis after the game, the Michigan offensive coordinator at the time, called out their lack of toughness. Utah is a physical team. They got off to a slow start and were down. And I think the feeling was, oh no, the sky is falling. Right. And for them to come out and come back and get that win, I think was a little bit of a shot in the arm. And there's only so much I think you can do to make up for the sour taste of losing to Michigan and missing the playoff. But certainly I think it sort of maybe stops the bleeding a little bit and gives you something going into the off season.
And Kyle McCord obviously is gone. And so if you have Devin Brown show that he can do it, then that's a huge thing going into next year. On the flip side, if he goes in that game and struggles, and you don't have an obvious transfer guy, and you look at it, is Lincoln Kienholz really a viable option as a redshirt freshman next year? Then you got some issues, and then we don't know who's going to come back next year. That was the other part of this. Almost everybody that talked today said they are going to play in the game, but none of them, other than Cody Simon, committed to coming back next year. And Jordan Hancock's another one of those guys. I mean, they could lose a lot. Kind of the buzz around is that they're going to keep more than they lose. I mean, Marvin Harrison said he's very open-minded about staying. Realistically,
there are a lot of these draft-eligible juniors or redshirt sophomores who are clearly going to be draft picks, but nobody is really quite in the same class as Marvin, where it's a top first-round pick. You are pretty confident in their draft status.
Yeah.
Feels like a lot of these guys could go mid-round or really who knows. It's hard to really assess, but in terms of the assured draft status, I think it's up in the air.
Out of your pocket to put it in your jacket. Thank you. Carry on.
Marvin is going to be, if he goes into the pros, which we expect, is going to be a top 2, top 3 pick. I mean, that's pretty much the consensus. I don't think you could say that about anybody else being even a lock for the first round. I think Emeka Luka's got a reasonable chance, but because of the injury this year, he didn't have the production that he thought he would have. JT Tuimoloau, is in some mock drafts a first-round pick. I don't think that he's necessarily a lock because the numbers aren't there. And, he had the great game against Penn State. I mean, just an incredible game in 2022. This year he was very good, but he just didn't take over games. And so I don't know that there's any. I mean, I think Denzel Burke is a guy that had a great year this year, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if he's a first-round pick. But a lot of these other guys are second, third, fourth, beyond, and with NIL now, maybe it makes staying in college at least a more viable option.
It's at least an insurance policy.
It is, on top of having an actual insurance policy. Right. So anyway, the bottom line out of today is that you're going to see essentially the same Ohio State team that you've seen this year, minus the quarterback, of course, but you're going to have the core of the team in Dallas.
It feels like it's going to probably end up being similar to maybe what the game against Utah was in the Rose Bowl 2 years. They had 4 players who did not play that game, and that's sort of like, to me, the number to watch. I don't think you're going to see. I think today the fact that you had 6 underclassmen commit, there's not going to be this mass exodus of dropouts.
Right.
Maybe just be an exodus
I mean,
with portal guys, but there may not be one of the opt-outs.
After the Michigan game, you think about playing in a non-college football playoff game bowl, and you think it's going to be a nothing roster. I mean, they're going to have to where are they going to? How are they going to get 22 starters out of it? That's not going to be the issue. They're going to have 22 legitimate starters in this game.
No, it still makes sense. I know people will talk about bowl games being meaningless and all that, but this is still a top 10 opponent. Right. And for a lot of these guys who are maybe trying to help their draft stock,
absolutely,
this is a more talent-equated game where you're going to have a chance to put good tape out there to help your draft stock, because Ohio State plays a handful of teams each year that are really in their weight class. Notre Dame, Penn State, Michigan. They've lost to Michigan, and so you want to, I think, establish yourself in a game of this magnitude. The bowl game's still an opportunity from that perspective if you're somebody who's trying to weigh a decision.
Yeah, Jordan Hancock, for example, slot corner, is going to line up, probably against Luther Burden, a really good receiver. I mean, he's one of the top receivers in the country, and so if he has a big game against a great game against Luther Burden, then that could shape his position.
It tipped scales for Luke Whippler last year. Held his own against the interior of Georgia's defensive front. He ended up going, but in terms of influencing guys' decisions, the bowl game is certainly meaningful for them.
Anyway, that about wraps it up here. We'll have more when we get down to Dallas, and maybe beforehand, but probably not if they've got finals and things are slowing down here. But anyway, thanks for watching.